Hello, my friend. Today I will tell you another long-forgotten legend. Close your eyes and let the magic transport you to Middle-earth. Our journey begins in the deep places of the world, where time flows like slow-mo moving rivers, and the stars hang low in ancient skies. There once walked a being of great power and greater ambition. His name, once fair among the Eor, had been Myron the Admirable. But now the tongues of elves and men whispered another name in hushed tones, a name wrapped in shadow and dread, Sauron. Long had he wandered the forgotten corners of Middle-earth, a creature of cunning and guile. He had been the greatest servant of Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, who in ages past had waged war against the Valor and all the free peoples of the world. And Sauron remained. The ruin of the world had been freed from his dominion, but the scars he left behind ran deep. And Sauron remained. The ruin of his master's fall had driven him into the east, into places unseen by elves or Dunedain, where the bones of the world lay bare. There he watched, he listened, he waited. Time does not erode the will of one who does not sleep, nor does the turning of years wither the mind of one whose heart burns with purpose. He was not broken, not undone. He would rise again. But first, he needed a throne, a kingdom, a fortress from which his will could stretch across the world. He sought a land that would mirror his own spirit, fierce, unyielding, forged in fire. He had roamed far and wide, tracing the ridges of the world's spine, peering into the desolate wastes where even the wind dared not linger. And then he came upon it, a place of blackened earth, with the ground cracked and smoldered with slumbering heat. A land veiled in perpetual dusk, its air thick with the taste of embers. At its heart stood a mountain, tall, jagged, crowned with a wreath of smoke, a mountain that wept rivers of fire, whose breath scorched the sky. Orodruin, the mountain of doom. Here Sauron smiled, a thin, cold smile, untouched by warmth. He had found it, the place where his dominion would begin. Mordor, the land of shadow. Sauron did not arrive alone. With him came his followers, creatures of darkness, the remnants of Morgoth's hosts who had fled into the nameless places when their master fell. Orcs, trolls, men from distant lands who had worshipped the Dark Lord of old. They came drawn like moths to the remnants of his power, their hunger fierce, their loyalty born not of love, but of fear. Among them was Luke, an orc chieftain who had once led the forges of Angband, Morgoth's black fortress in the north. He was ancient even for his kind, his skin like old leather, his hands scarred from years of shaping cruel weapons in fires hotter than the sun. He had seen the fall of the first Dark Lord. He had seen ruin come to their kind. But now he was another who would lead, another who would raise them from the ashes. Vakru knelt before Sauron, his eyes burning with something between reverence and terror. "Lord of Gifts," he rasped, using one of Sauron's many names, "what would you have us build?" Sauron looked upon him, his gaze like molten gold, piercing and deep. "A tower," he said, "a fortress greater than any that has come before, a citadel from which my will shall rule the world." His voice was smooth as oil, heavy with promise, edged with steel. We will raise bearer. And so, beneath the shadow of Orodruin, the work began. The land itself fought them at first, for Mordor was a place of wrath and fire. The air was heavy with smoke, the rivers dry, the sky a great furnace red and unyielding. No birds sang, no trees grew. The ground trembled, restless with the deep fires that slumbered below. But Sauron was patient. He had shaped the world before. He knew its bones, its veins, its heart. Great slabs of black stone were carved from the mountains, dragged by endless lines of orcs, their backs bent beneath the weight, their hands raw from toil. The sound of iron striking stone rang across the land like the beating of war drums. Smoke rose into the air, thick and choking, mingling with the ever-present gloom. And Sauron watched. He did not rest, nor did he falter. He stood upon the slopes of Mount Doom, his arms crossed, his piercing eyes never straying from the work. His form, tall and imposing, was clad in black armor that gleamed like polished obsidian, a presence that could not be ignored, a will that could not be denied. For Sauron was no mere king, no warlord bound by mortal needs. He was a Maya, a being from beyond the circles of the world, his power woven into the very fabric of creation. He did not tire, he did not waver, and neither did those who labored under his gaze. The orcs worked without pause, the great forges roaring, their fires painting the land in a terrible glow. Foundations were laid deep into the bedrock, reinforced with spells dark and unyielding. The first stones of Barad-dûr were set, massive slabs of obsidian fused with sorcery, bound with malice. Elec wiped the sweat from his brow, looking up at the rising tower with a mixture of awe and fear. This was no mere fortress. This was something more, a place woven with power, a heart of shadow. It was as if the land itself bent to Sauron's will, shaping itself to his vision. And deep within the growing walls, beneath the very roots of the tower, Sauron walked alone. He ran his hands along the cold stone, whispering in the black speech, binding it with spells unseen. Here, in this chamber that none would ever gaze upon, he would weave his greatest work. A forge, a place where fire would never die, where metal would gleam like captured starlight. A place where he would shape the instrument of his dominion, the key to his rule, the One Ring. But that was a tale for another night. For now, the tower rose, stone by stone, shadow by shadow, and in the depths of Mordor beneath the ashen sky, the dark heart of the world began to beat once more. The land stretched before him, endless and ancient, a scar upon the world where nothing pure could grow. The sky above Mordor was a heavy thing, burdened by an eternal dusk, its clouds thick with the soot and shadow of countless fires smoldering in the deep places of the earth. The wind, dry and bitter as old bone, howled across the blackened plains, carrying the scent of scorched stone and ruin. There was no bird song, no whisper of green things stirring in the breeze, no murmur of water running through the veins of the land. Only silence, thick and suffocating, broken only by the occasional distant crack of the mountain's breath. As Orodruin rumbled in its sleep, Sauron stood atop a jagged rise of rock, his cloak shifting like the night itself, his golden eyes piercing the horizon with a gaze that was not merely sight, but understanding. He did not merely look at the land, he beheld it, felt it, knew it. He traced its lines with his mind, its faults and hollows, its hidden strengths buried beneath leaks of stone. He knew where the roots of fire coiled in the deep places, where the magma slumbered in the blackened veins of the earth. He knew where the ancient rivers had once run, their beds now long dry, where the bones of the world had cracked and settled over eons, forming the jagged teeth of the Efeldwath. This place had waited for him, though it did not yet know it. This was his land now, and he would make it his throne. Behind him, Lukrik stood in weary silence, watching the Dark Lord in his stillness. The old orc did not pretend to understand the depth of his master's thoughts, nor did he attempt to. To him, Sauron was like the mountain itself, unfathomable, terrible, vast. But even mountains could crumble. He had seen great lords rise and fall. He had seen strongholds which once seemed eternal ground to dust beneath the tide of war. He had watched the towers of Angbaband blacken and collapse, had walked among the ruin of Gorthau's past works, shattered and abandoned when Morgoth fell. And so he waited, his fingers tightening around the hilt of the crude blade at his belt, his gaze flickering from the Dark Lord to the landscape stretching before them. It was Sauron who finally spoke, his voice low and measured, as if weighing the very words themselves before granting them to the world. "They will come, in time," he murmured, though his tone was not anxious nor uncertain, but merely a statement of fact, as inevitable as the turning of the heavens. "The new Menorans will come, and with them will come fire and steel, ships upon the waves, swords polished in the forges of westernness, and the elves. Yes, they will watch. They will whisper to one another in the halls of Lindon, behind their white walls, beneath their trees of silver and gold. And they will call me by many names, all of them spoken with fear. Some will counsel patience, some will urge war, but none will remain idle forever." His lips curled, though the expression did not reach his eyes. "They will call this place cursed, and in their songs they will weave dark tales of it. But no curse is greater than the will that bends the world to its shape, and no song can undo what I shall make here." Lug shifted his weight, uneasy beneath the heavy words. "The elves," he growled, spitting onto the ground as if to rid himself of the very taste of the word. "Cowards. They whisper and they wait, but they do not strike when they should. They let Morgoth build his fortress. Let him shape Angband to his liking. Let him spread his shadow across the world. And when at last they moved, they were too late, and the world burned for it. They will wait again, and we will grow strong." Sauron turned his gaze upon him, slow and deliberate, and though his face was unreadable, something in his eyes, something cold and knowing, made the orc take a half-step back. "And is that what you believe?" Sauron asked, his voice a blade so fine it could carve thought from illusion. "That they waited, that they watched, that they allowed my master to rise unchecked, foolishly, blindly?" Gru hesitated, but only for a moment before straightening his hunched shoulders and meeting the Dark Lord's gaze. He was no cringing wretch, no lowly threw who cowered at the first whisper of wrath. He was old, older than most of his kind, had survived wars and betrayals and the fall of a god. he was no fool. "They hesitated," he said, slower this time, as if weighing his own thoughts, testing them for weakness. "They feared. They knew the cost of war, and they wished to avoid it. Even after what Morgoth did in the First Age, they were slow to act against you in the Second. They whisper now, and they watch, but they will not come swiftly. They will wait, and we will have time." Sauron was silent for a long moment, the wind shifting the folds of his black cloak, the distant murmurs of the earth rising and falling like the breath of a sleeping beast. Then finally he inclined his head as if in some distant form of approval. "Time," he murmured almost to himself. "Yes, we will have time. And time, when wielded well, is a weapon greater than any sword." He turned back to the lands before them, stretching his arm out, his long fingers splaying wide, as if grasping the very air itself. And in that moment the land seemed to stir, as if something deep beneath the surface had heard the call of its new master. The wind shifted. The smoke from the mountain curled in a new direction, and the air itself grew heavy, thick with a nameless tension. "This will be the foundation," he said at last. "Here, upon this stone, we will raise Barad-dûr." Lotr exhaled through his teeth, his breath a sharp hiss of anticipation. The tower, the great fortress, the citadel of their master. He had seen fortresses built before, had walked beneath the black iron gates of Angband, had glimpsed the ruin of Utumno in his youth. But this would be something else, something greater, something unbreakable. And so, beneath the shadow of Orodruin, beneath the ceaseless smoke of the blackened sky, beneath the weight of the Dark Lord's will, the work began. The ground was broken, the first stones laid, the forges kindled, and the hammer of darkness fell upon the world once more. The sky above Mordor stretched like a great bruised canopy, vast and oppressive, its clouds thick with the endless belching of the mountain's fire. There was no dawn here, nor twilight, nor the soft murmur of evening birdsong as day faded into night. Only a ceaseless, ashen gloom, a world where the sky bore no promise of renewal, where the wind did not dance with the fragrance of new grass, but carried the bitter sting of cinder and ruin. Smoke and shadow curled over the broken ridges, twisting like restless spirits, whispering through the gaping cracks in the earth, filling the air with the scent of something ancient and nameless, something older than stone, older than fear itself. And in that great silence, beneath the brooding weight of heaven, the first stones of Barad-dûr were laid. They were not placed by gentle hands, nor lifted with the careful reverence of builders shaping something fair. No, here there was no poetry in the work, no melody in the toil, only the relentless pounding of hammers, the groan of stone upon stone, the ceaseless wail of iron dragged from the bowels of the world. The land itself was turned to Sauron's will, bent and broken, reshaped by the labors of those who knew only obedience, who toiled not with hope, but with the heavy burden of necessity. Orcs, twisted and wretched, their backs bowed beneath the weight of iron and stone, labored under the lash of cruel overseers, their breath hot and ragged in the heavy air. Trolls, slow-witted and immense, heaved massive slabs of obsidian, their movements ponderous, their hands raw from the cutting edges of the black rock. The sounds of their work rose into the air, blending with the distant, restless breath of Orodruin, a cacophony of forging and fire, of building and breaking, of creation born not from love, but from dominion. And still he watched. Sauron stood upon the jagged rise of a crumbling outcrop, his figure a silhouette against the roaring sky, his cloak shifting like the whisper of midnight winds. His hands, long and pale, rested upon the hilt of a dark blade, his fingers idly tracing the patterns wrought into its steel. Patterns that spoke of an age before this one, before he had turned to shadow, before the world had known the weight of his name. His golden eyes, burning with something deeper than fire, gazed out across the great expanse of stone and toil, and in them lay the measure of his vision, the shape of a future yet to be carved. Lordofther, his armor stained with soot and sweat, climbed the rise with slow, deliberate steps, his breath coming in short huffs, though whether from exertion or unease he could not say. His old bones, hardened by years of war and servitude, ached with the weight of time. Yet it was not the labor of stone that made him weary. It was the unrelenting will of the one he now approached, the presence that seemed to warp the very air around him, as if the land itself bent under the force of its master's gaze. "The first tier's nearly set," Lordofther growled, his voice like gravel grinding beneath an iron wheel. "The foundations run deep, deeper than any fortress we've ever built. We've driven the stone into the bones of the earth itself. This tower, it will not fall easily." Sauron did not turn to him at once. For a moment he remained as he was, motionless, as if listening to something only he could hear, something woven into the fabric of the wind and stone. Then, at last, he spoke, his voice quiet, smooth as polished obsidian, yet carrying with it the weight of something vast, something immovable. "It will not fall at all." Lug frowned, shifting his weight, the iron plates of his armor clinking softly with the movement. "Nothing stands forever," he muttered, almost without thought. "Even the greatest strongholds crumble. I have seen them fall. I have walked through their ruins." Sauron turned to him now, slowly, his golden eyes catching the dim light and holding it as if it bowed to his presence. "You have seen ruins, yes," he mused, his voice threading through the air like the low murmur of a distant storm. "You have walked among the bones of falling kings, seen the dust of empires long since spent. You have witnessed towers once proud, blackened by fire, shattered by war, and yet you still do not understand." Baruk shifted uncomfortable beneath that gaze, beneath the quiet certainty that lay beneath those words, a certainty that was not born of arrogance nor of blind faith, but of something deeper, something that had weighed and measured the world and found it wanting. Sauron stepped forward just enough that the wind caught the edges of his cloak, sending it billowing like a shadow given form. "A tower of stone," he continued, his voice low but firm, each word deliberate, as if carving them into the very fabric of the world. "A fortress of iron, a kingdom bound by walls and gates. These things are fragile. They can be broken. They can be undone." He lifted a hand, fingers curling slightly, as if shaping the air itself. "But what I build is not mere stone. It is not iron, nor mortar, nor wood. It is will." His fingers tightened, a slow, precise motion, as if grasping something unseen, something vast and terrible. "Will does not break," he said. "Will does not crumble. It bends the world to its shape. It does not fall. It only grows." Luke exhaled slowly, his grip tightening on the hilt of his blade, though whether in understanding or unease, he could not say. "And what of the others?" he asked, his voice quieter now, more measured. "What of those who will seek to stop this? The elves will not sit idle forever. The men of the West, those cursed Númenorans, will come. They will come with their white sails and their silver blades, and they will not suffer this tower to ride." Sauron smiled, though there was no warmth in it, only something cold and knowing, something that saw beyond the present, beyond the lines of battle yet to be drawn. "They will come," he agreed, his tone almost amused. "And they will find that their swords cannot cut through shadow, that their walls will not hold against the weight of the world itself pressing upon them." He turned back to the land, to the rising walls of his great fortress, to the foundation of something greater than any kingdom had ever known. "Let them come," he murmured, almost to himself. "For what I build is not for them to break. It is not for them to understand." He raised his hand, and the wind stirred, carrying with it the scent of something distant, something yet to be shaped. "Brat will rise," he said, his voice a whisper of iron and inevitability. "And when it is finished, when its foundations have drunk deep of the fire that sleeps beneath the world, they will know that their time is at an end." And so the work continued, stone upon stone, shadow upon shadow. And deep in the heart of the world, the land itself trembled beneath the weight of the will that would shape it. The sky above Mordor stretched vast and unrelenting, an ocean of ash and gray, where the sun was a distant dying ember, its light choked and strangled by the smoke that coiled from Orodruin's wounded man. The air itself was thick, laden with the taste of charred stone and the accurate sting of molten fire, as though the land still smoldered from ancient wounds long unhealed. The winds that passed through the valleys and gorges did not sing with life, did not dance with the murmuring voices of trees or the laughter of water slipping over stone. No, this was a land where even the wind whispered in hushed tones, afraid to stir too boldly beneath the ever-watchful gaze of its new master. And beneath this sky where no stars had shone unbroken for an age, the work of Barad-dûr continued. The black stone that was hewn from the mountains did not yield easily. It was as though the bones of Mordor resisted, knowing that something unnatural was being wrought from their depths. Great fissures split the earth where trolls toiled with iron picks. Their shoulders bowed under the weight of their labor, their hands thick with dust and blood where sharp rock had cut into flesh. Orcs, smaller and quicker, skewered between the work sites, their voices raised in curses and guttural commands, their whips lashing out to keep the weary from slowing. Fires burned in the deep pits, the glow reflecting against the black, jagged cliffs. And all across the land, the sound of the hammers rang like the heartbeat of something vast and terrible, stirring to wakefulness. And Sauron watched. He moved through the construction not as a distant ruler, not as one who merely commanded from afar, but as something closer, something woven into the very breath of this place. His will, a force that shaped the world as surely as the stone itself. His presence was not one that could be ignored. Where he passed, the laborers worked faster, their hands moving with renewed desperation, for even the most witless among them knew that his gaze was heavier than iron, and that to disappoint it was to court ruin. But it was not mere fear that compelled them. No, it was something deeper, something stranger. His voice, when it came, was not like the barking orders of the overseers, nor the cruel snarls of the orc chieftains, but something colder, something smooth as polished glass, and twice as sharp. His words carried weight, not because they threatened, but because they offered something that no whip ever could. They offered purpose. For Sauron understood something that his master Morgoth had never fully grasped. Fear could break men, but purpose could bind them. Fear could turn allies against one another, could create weakness where strength was needed. But purpose made things unbreakable. It was not enough to command, one must convince. And so where the strongest of his servants labored, where the pillars of his fortress were being raised from the broken spine of the land itself, he did not merely watch, he spoke. Laroup stood beside him, his heavy frame weighed with exhaustion, though he dared not show it. His hands, wrapped in old leather, bore the marks of long toil, and his armor, battered and pitted from years of war, carried the dust of this place like a second skin. He was not as young as he had once been, but he was shrewd, and shrewdness had kept him alive longer than most of his kind. His gaze followed the laborers below, the way they dragged stone upon stone, the way their bodies strained against the weight of their work. And though he did not say it, though he would never say it, he felt the edge of something creeping into his mind. Doubt. The tower was rising, yes, but at what cost? How many had already fallen to the weight of this labor? How many had been swallowed by the earth, crushed beneath the merciless hands of stone, their bodies forgotten in the black dust? And if so many had already perished, how many more would follow? Could this vast, dark monument truly be built upon such ruin? And as if sensing his thoughts, as if reading them from the very shape of his silence, Sauron turned to him. "You are troubled, Lucro." The old orc stiffened slightly, though he did not lower his gaze. "I do not question your will, my lord," he said, his voice gruff, wary, and careful. "But I have seen strongholds fall. I have seen fortresses razed with sweat and iron only to crumble when the tides of war shift. This tower, it will stand. That I do not doubt. But I wonder, what is it that will make it endure?" Sauron's golden eyes gleamed in the half-light, unreadable, ancient. And then, after a long moment, he smiled. It was not a warm expression, nor a cruel one. It was something else, something colder, something vast. "Tell me, Laruk," he said, his voice low, almost thoughtful, as though the conversation were a luxury, an indulgence he rarely allowed himself. "What do you believe makes a thing eternal? Is it strength? Is it stone, iron, walls that cannot be breached?" He gestured toward the rising pillars, toward the massive slabs of obsidian being bound with mortar that have been mixed with the blood of countless hands. If walls alone were enough to withstand the tides of time, then there would be no ruins in this world. Lucro was silent for a long moment. Then slowly he exhaled. "Fear," he said at last. "Fear is what keeps things from falling." Sauron tilted his head slightly, considering him. "Fear is a useful thing," he agreed. "It binds men to their masters. It makes armies march even when their bones ache with weariness. It can hold the line, keep the sword in a trembling hand when all else would make it fall. But fear alone is fleeting. It is a flame that burns bright, but it consumes itself in time. No, Lugru, it is not fear that makes things eternal." He stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the great blackened stones that would form the heart of his tower. The tower that would outlast them all. The tower that would rise higher than any had before, until it touched the very will of the world itself. It is dominion. Luck frowned, his thick fingers flexing at his sides. Dominion. Sauron turned to him, and now there was something in his expression, something fierce, something radiant, something vast and burning, not with the fire of Orodruin, but with a fire deeper than that, a fire that had no name. "Dominion," he repeated, his voice a whisper, but one that seemed to tremble in the very air. "To shape the world to your will, so that it remembers your hand, even when you are gone. That is what makes a thing endure, Luke. Not fear, not stone, not iron, dominion." Ugg said nothing. He only nodded slowly, though whether in understanding or in reluctant acceptance, even he did not know. And as they stood there, beneath the endless shadow of that sky, the first stones of Barad-dûr drank deep of their master's will, and the tower slowly began to rise. The land groaned under the weight of its new burden. The sky choked with the black breath of forges that never slept, the air thick with the scent of iron and blood, with the acrid bite of molten rock and the choking dust of crushed stone. The very ground seemed to tremble beneath the endless march of labor, as if resenting the touch of the creatures that now tore into its bones, reshaping its surface with hammer and chisel, with lash and fire. Mordor, once a land of barren desolation, now seethed with purpose, with motion, with an urgency that pulsed like the heartbeat of some vast and terrible thing stirring from slumber. The foundation of Barad-dûr stretched outward in all directions, a lattice work of iron and stone driven deep into the rock, its supports reaching downward into the veins of the earth, seeking something solid, something unshakable upon which to build. This was not the careless construction of a kingdom raised by men, built in haste, fated to fall with the crumbling of walls and the passing of years. No, this was something older, something deeper. Each stone was set with purpose, each beam of iron bound with a force that could not be seen but could be felt, as though the very will of its master had seeped into the mortar, binding the structure not just to the land, but to the world itself. Sauron stood atop one of the jagged ridges overlooking the work, his dark robes trailing like shadow in the windless air, his golden eyes fixed upon the vast expanse of labor unfolding below him. He watched as the fires of the forges flared, their glow painting the cliffs in the color of old wounds. As the orcs labored ceaselessly beneath the watchful eyes of their overseers, their backs bent, their hands blackened with soot and sweat. He watched as the first of the great towers began to rise, its dark silhouette already taking shape against the smoldering sky, as the walls, thick and unyielding, swallowed the landscape, enclosing it within the growing embrace of the fortress that would one day rule all things. Ugric approached slowly, his steps heavy, his breath thick in his chest. Though whether from the weight of his armor or the weight of his thoughts, he did not know. He was tired, more tired than he had ever been, but he would not show weakness, not here, not now, not in the presence of the one whose will had bound him to this place. He had fought for many masters before. He had served in the great wars of the past, had marched beneath banners that had long since turned to dust, had carved his name into the stones of strongholds that no longer stood. But there had always been something temporary in those wars, something fleeting, something fragile. This was different. "This tower," he said at last, his voice rough, his throat thick with dust. "It is unlike anything we have built before. I see it in the way the stones are placed, in the way the walls rise, in the way the foundation is set deep, deeper than the roots of mountains. There is something in it, something beyond mere strength, beyond mere stone and steel. I feel it when I walk among the laborers, when I stand in its shadow. It is not just a fortress. It is something more." Sauron turned to him then slowly, his gaze measuring unreadable. "You are not wrong," he said, his voice smooth as dark water, carrying with it the weight of something ancient, something vast. "This is no mere stronghold. It is not built as men build their cities, nor as the elves carve their towers from white stone, seeking beauty, seeking refuge. It is not meant to guard, nor to shelter. It is meant to command. It is meant to shape the world around it, to bend the land itself to its will. It is not a place to be lived in. It is a place from which all things will be ruled." Leroux frowned, his fingers tightening on the hilt of his blade, though he did not draw it, nor did he even seem aware of the movement. "To rule the land is one thing," he muttered, "but to shape it, to bend it, what does that mean?" Sauron regarded him for a long moment, his expression unreadable, and then he stepped forward, the black folds of his robes shifting like the edges of a storm. "What is a land, Luke?" he asked, his tone almost contemplative, almost distant, as though he were speaking not just to his servant, but to something beyond them both. "Is it merely rock and river, tree and field? Is it merely the soil upon which men plant their crops, upon which kings build their castles, upon which armies spill their blood? No, a land is not merely what can be touched. It is what is believed. It is the weight of its name, the breath of those who speak it, the fear and love and longing that bind it together. A land is a story told over and over again, written in the bones of those who walk it." His golden eyes burned now, bright as distant fire, sharp as the edge of a blade. "And stories can be rewritten." The Grook exhaled slowly, his mind turning over the words, the weight of them settling deep in his chest. He had never thought of the world in such terms before. He had thought of war, of conquest, of the clash of steel and the spilling of blood. He had thought of power as something that could be taken, held, wielded like a weapon. But this was something different. This was not the power of a warlord, of a king seeking to carve out his kingdom from the wreckage of others. This was something greater, something deeper, that this was the power to remake the world itself. "And that is what this tower is?" he asked at last, his voice quiet now, thoughtful. "A rewriting of the world." Sauron smiled. Then a slow, knowing thing, though there was no joy in it, only certainty. "Yes," he murmured, "that is exactly what it is." He turned then, gazing once more upon the growing fortress, upon the dark towers rising like jagged teeth against the sky, upon the endless, tireless labor that bounded together, that shaped it into something vast, something inevitable. And beneath his gaze, the land itself seemed to shudder, as if it too understood what was coming. For Barad-dûr was not merely being built, it was being written, and the world would read its name for all the ages to come. The air over Mordor was heavy, not only with the soot and cinder that rose in thick plumes from the mountain's ever-churning heart, but with a deeper, more suffocating weight, an unseen force that had settled over the land like the slow tightening of a noose. It was not merely the oppressive heat that curled in waves across the blackened ground, nor the ceaseless, mind-numbing labor of those who toiled at the foot of the rising fortress. No, this was something else, something woven into the very fabric of the place, something that seemed to whisper in the silence between hammer blows, something that made the stones of Barad feel heavier, darker, as if they drank the weariness of those who lifted them, feeding upon it, growing stronger with every ounce of suffering poured into their shaping. The first great spire of the tower had begun to take shape, its obsidian walls slick with the heat of newly melted stone. Its surface smooth as the skin of a blade, yet sharper, darker, as if light itself recoiled from its touch. Its foundations were deeper than any fortress before it, driven into the bedrock, fused with the land by fire and spell, bound with enchantments so strong that no mere force of arms could unmake them. No storm would shake it, no siege would breach its walls, no power born of flesh and will alone would ever bring it to ruin. And yet it was not the tower itself that made the land tremble, not the towering black walls, nor the countless forges glowing beneath its feet. It was the presence of the one who willed it into being. Sauron stood upon the newly raised battlements, gazing down at the growing expanse of his dominion, his golden eyes gleaming like molten coins in the dim, smoldering light. He did not move as others did not shift his weight or breathe with the heavy exertion of those who labored below. He was utterly still, as though he had become one with the very air, as though his being stretched beyond the limits of flesh and form, threading itself into the world, merging with it, bending it to his purpose. The wind that rose from the mountains did not touch him, nor did the swirling ash cling to his robes. He was like a shadow cast upon the land, a thing apart, something neither living nor dead, something that existed beyond the simple fleeting burdens of the body. Cower or shrink as so many of his kind did. He did not cower or shrink as so many of his kind did when the Dark Lord's gaze fell upon them. Nor did he stumble over his words, as the lesser captains often did when called to report. Fear was a thing he had long since mastered, had worn it like a second skin for so many years that it no longer dictated his actions, no longer made his hands tremble or his voice falter. No, it was not fear that made his breath heavy as he stood before his master, not fear that made his mind race with thoughts he did not dare voice. It was something else, something deeper. "The lower halls are near completion," Lucro said at last, his voice rough as crushed stone, though steady. "The workers move faster now. The ones who have lived through the worst of it, those who have seen their kin fall beneath the weight of the stones they carry. those who have felt the bite of the whip and the burn of the forges. They do not waste their strength anymore. They know what is expected of them. They do not fight the work. They let it shape them. Sauron turned his gaze upon him then, slow and deliberate, the faintest flicker of something almost like amusement passing through his golden eyes before vanishing into the void of his expression. "And you believe that is strength?" he asked, his voice smooth, soft yet vast, as if it echoed from a place beyond this world. "To endure, to suffer without complaint, to bend beneath the weight of what is demanded. Do you think that is power?" Ugur hesitated, though only for a moment. He had been ready for this, had expected it. He had learned in the long years of his service that to speak plainly to Sauron was both a danger and a necessity. To flatter him was foolishness. Sauron had no need for empty words, no patience for those who merely echoed his will without thought. But to challenge him, to contradict him outright, was death. The path was a thin one, and it had been walked by many before him, most of whom were now dust. "It is a kind of strength," Lugruk said finally, his voice slow, deliberate, as though he were testing the weight of each word before releasing it. "Not the greatest kind, perhaps, but strength all the same. Those who survive hardship, who learn to carry their burdens without breaking, those are the ones who last. You have seen it yourself. The weak do not endure here. The ones who crumble beneath the work, the ones who try to flee, the ones who fight against the inevitable, they do not last. Only those who learn to bear the weight of their chains survive." Sauron was silent for a long moment, his gaze sharp as a knife's edge, unreadable, distant. Then, slowly, he inclined his head. "Yes," he murmured, "that is true. But survival is not power. Survival is what the desperate cling to when they have nothing else. It is the struggle of the nameless, the toil of those who will leave no mark upon the world. To endure is not to rule." He turned back to the tower, then to the dark walls rising higher with each passing day, his golden eyes narrowing slightly, as if seeing something beyond the present, something that had not yet come to pass, but was already written in the deep places of his mind. "Power is not in the act of bearing a burden," he continued, his voice quieter now, though no less absolute. "Power is in becoming the burden. It is in shaping the yoke so that others will bear it for you. It is in crafting a world where suffering is not a thing to be endured, but a thing to be used, a thing to be wielded." Luke exhaled slowly, his fingers curling into his palms, though whether in agreement or unease, even he did not know. "And that is what Barad-dûr will be?" he asked, his voice quieter now, less certain. "A thing that cannot be endured, only wielded." Sauron smiled then, though there was no warmth in it, only something cold and vast, something endless. "Yes," he said simply. And as the wind howled through the empty halls of the unfinished tower, as the great forges roared beneath the mountain's belly, as the stones of Barad-dûr drank deep of the sweat and blood that bound them together, the land itself seemed to shift, to stir, as if awakening to something that had always been waiting to rise. For this was no mere fortress. This was a throne upon which the world would kneel. The tower rose, its blackened stone drinking the light, its form a thing of hunger, jagged and unyielding, as if it had not been built, but had grown from the bones of the earth itself. The foundations had long been set, driven deep into the bedrock, bound not merely by mortar and iron, but by something greater, something unseen. Threads of will woven into its very structure, chains of dominion forged in secret, unseen, unbreakable. The work never ceased. Beneath the smoldering sky, beneath the ever-present shroud of soot and shadow that thickened the air like the breath of some unseen beast, the great forges roared in their endless toil, their bellies filled with the molten lifeblood of the mountain. Their fires never dimmed, their embers never cooled. They were fed by the ceaseless march of laborers, orcs, and men. Creatures of dark allegiance, bound not only by chains of iron, but by fear, by necessity, by the cold truth that there was no place for them beyond this. To build Barad-dûr was not merely to shape a fortress of stone, but to carve a new order into the world. Sauron did not merely seek walls that could withstand siege, nor towers that could loom high above the land in defiance of time. Those were the ambitions of lesser kings, men who thought their works eternal, yet whose names were washed away like dust when the tides of history turned against them. No, he had seen such things crumble. He had walked through the ruins of their pride, had traced the remnants of their once mighty halls, now broken and empty, their banners rotted, their thrones abandoned. Strength alone was not enough. Power that relied on strength alone was fragile, doomed to falter the moment strength failed. And Sauron did not fail. He stood upon the highest scaffold of the unfinished tower, a great platform of black stone that jutted out over the vast expanse of Mordor, surveying the work as if he were already seated upon his throne. The air was thick with the scent of iron and burning pitch, heavy with the heat that rose in shimmering waves from the open pits below. He could hear it all, the clang of hammers upon anvils, the harsh bark of overseers driving their workers onward, the labored breathing of those who had worked beyond the limits of flesh and yet still did not stop. The very air here was different, charged with something deeper than mere exertion. It was will made manifest, a force that pulled at the mind, bent the body, shaped those who labored under it into something else, something that could no longer exist outside its grasp. Legru climbed the scaffolding with slow, measured steps, his heavy frame moving with a weariness that he did not allow to show, though he knew his master could see it, could feel it as surely as the heat of the mountain could be felt against the skin. He had not slept in days, though what was sleep in a place where the sky never truly darkened, where the fires never truly dimmed? The very concept of rest had begun to feel distant, irrelevant, like something that had belonged to a different life, a different world. He came to stand beside Sauron, his gaze sweeping over the landscape, over the great rivers of stone and iron being shaped into something terrible and beautiful. He had fought in many wars, had laid siege to fortresses that men had called unbreakable, had seen empires rise and fall beneath the weight of their own ambition. But he had never seen anything like this. It was something greater. It was a wound in the world, a scar carved so deep that it would never fade, a thing that would not crumble, not break, not be undone. "It grows," he said at last, his voice rough, worn, as though the very air here had scraped it raw. Sauron did not turn to him immediately. When he did speak, his voice was low, measured, smooth as flowing metal, yet carrying the weight of something vast and undeniable. "Yes," he murmured, "it grows. It takes shape. It awakens." He lifted a hand slightly, fingers splaying as if feeling the presence of something unseen, something that pulsed beneath the surface of the stone. Something that was not merely structure, not merely walls and towers, but something else, something living, something... Luke shifted slightly, the weight of that word settling over him like a shadow stretching in the firelight. Awakens. He had seen many things, had fought in the name of many masters, had watched as cities burned and strongholds fell. But there was something about Barad-dûr that unsettled even him. There was no grandeur here, no fleeting glory of a king's fortress built to proclaim his dominion to the world. There was something deeper, something colder, something that did not merely seek to impose its will upon the land, but to merge with it, to become part of it, to shape it from the inside out. "This tower," Lordofther muttered, his voice quieter now, more thoughtful, as if he were speaking not only to his master, but to himself. "It feels different from Angband, from any stronghold I have ever seen. It is not just a thing that is being built. It is a thing that is becoming." Sauron's gaze turned to him, and for a long moment he said nothing. Then, at last, he inclined his head slightly, the faintest glimmer of something almost like amusement flickering behind his golden eyes. "You begin to understand," he murmured. "Hangand was Morgoth's fortress, but it was only a fortress, a place of war, of destruction, of raw power unleashed. It was a hammer, nothing more. Loomed high above the plain, casting long shadows that would never recede. But Barad-dûr is not a hammer. It is not merely a place of war. It is a thing that will endure not because of its walls, nor its height, nor its gates of iron, but because it will become the fulcrum upon which the world turns. It will not merely exist within the world. It will change the world itself." Luke exhaled slowly, his thoughts turning over those words, trying to grasp the depth of them, the enormity of what they meant. He had always believed that power was a thing wielded, a thing taken, a thing that existed in the strength of one's hand, in the sharpness of a blade, in the number of warriors who marched beneath one's banner. But Sarah did not speak of power as something held, something grasped. He spoke of it as something woven into the fabric of the world itself, something that could not be lost because it had never been separate to begin with. "And when it is finished," Elros said after a long moment, his voice quiet now, reverent, weary, as though speaking the words aloud made them more real. "What will it be?" Sauron smiled then, slow, knowing, his golden eyes glinting in the firelight. "It will be the axis upon which all things revolve," he murmured. "It will be the place from which I do not merely rule, but reshape." And as the wind howled through the scaffolding, as the stones of Barad-dûr stood silent and unyielding beneath the weight of that will, Luke felt for the first time that he was not merely standing in a fortress, but in something far greater, something that did not merely exist in the present, but stretched forward into the ages to come, casting a shadow that would never fade. For this was not merely a tower, it was the heart of an empire that would never fall. The tower loomed higher now, its walls stretching toward the sky as if clawing their way out of the depths of the world, dark and gleaming like the obsidian teeth of some slumbering god, jagged and terrible. The weight of Barad-dûr did not merely press upon the land, it bled into it, into the blackened stones, into the dust that clung to the feet of those who toiled at its base, into the very air that curled thick with the scent of fire and sweat and iron. It was no ordinary fortress, no mere stronghold of war. It was something else, something vaster, something that did not merely exist, but imposed itself upon the world. A thing so heavy with will, so saturated with purpose, that the land itself seemed to warp around it, as if bowing to the inevitable. There was no silence here. There was never silence. The endless ringing of the forges echoed through the canyons and valleys, a cacophony of hammer upon iron, of stone grinding against stone, of the laboring groans of creatures who had long since forgotten the meaning of rest. The mountain, ever watchful, belched smoke and fire into the heavens, sending great plumes of darkness curling into the sky, like the exhalations of some ancient, unseen thing stirring in its sleep. The ground trembled beneath its breath, a deep, rhythmic pulse that beat through the foundations of Barad-dûr, threading through its walls like veins of molten gold, binding it to the land in a way that was neither natural nor accidental. Sauron stood at the highest completed level of the tower, the wind pulling at the edges of his black robes, though it did not truly touch him. The weight of his presence was enough to still the air, to press it down thick and oppressive, making even the restless smoke hesitate before it curled around him in slow, reverent tendrils. His golden eyes flickered with something distant, something vast, something beyond the sight of those who stood below, toiling in the endless march of his great design. He could see beyond the horizon, beyond the ridges of the Efflu, beyond the wasted plains that stretched in all directions. He could see further than any mortal eye, further than the reach of kings or the ambitions of lesser minds. Luke approached slowly, his broad shoulders stiff with the weight of his years, the lines of his face set deep with something that was not merely exhaustion, but something quieter, something heavier, understanding. He had watched this place grow, had seen the first stones laid, had watched the foundation dig deep into the bones of the world, had seen the fortress rise from nothing, had felt its presence settle over the land like a great and terrible shadow. He had believed in many things before, had fought in the name of many lords, had pledged his loyalty to many masters, but he had never before witnessed something like this, something that did not merely command, but consume. He stood beside his master, staring out across the land, his breath slow, measured, though not out of fear. No, not fear. Something else. Something he did not yet have the words for. "This tower," he began, then hesitated, frowning as if uncertain whether he wished to finish the thought. But Sauron did not turn, did not move, only waited. And so Lugra continued, his voice quieter now, more reflective. "It feels as though it does not rise. It sinks, as if it is not reaching upward, but burrowing deeper, spreading like roots into the land, binding itself into something older than the stone it is made from." Sauron inclined his head slightly, his gaze never wavering from the horizon, though the faintest glimmer of something like approval flickered behind his golden eyes. "You see more than most," he murmured, his voice smooth, distant, yet as unshakable as the stone beneath their feet. "Yes, Barad-dûr does not merely stand, it claims. It does not rise, it binds. This is not a fortress that can be stormed, nor a city that can be raised. It is something more. It does not simply exist within the world. It alters the world around it. It reshapes them. The group exhaled a slow, deep breath that carried with it the weight of understanding. He had known war, had known conquest, had known the building of walls, the raising of gates, the forging of weapons, the taking of lands. But this was something beyond that. It was not a question of strength, of armies, of fortifications that could be manned, or defenses that could be breached. This was something deeper, a shift, a change in the very order of things, a rewriting of the way power worked, of the way dominion was shaped. "And those who build it," he asked at last, his voice quiet now, almost hesitant, "those who labor beneath it, do they not see it? Do they not feel it? That they are shaping something that is shaping them in turn?" Sauron smiled then, slow and knowing, though there was no warmth in it, only something vast, something inevitable. "They do not need to understand," he said softly, almost indulgently. "They do not need to know the weight of what they build, nor the depth of what they serve. They are tools, nothing more, hands that shape the world without ever realizing that the shape they carve is their own undoing. That is the nature of dominion. Lore, not to rule by force alone, not to crush with might, but to shape the world so that those who live within it do not even see the chains that bind them." Lukric was silent, the truth of those words settling deep into the marrow of his bones. He had thought power was a thing wielded, a thing seized, a thing taken in the clash of steel and the march of war. But Sauron did not think in such terms. He did not merely take, he changed. He did not merely rule, he shaped. He was not a warlord, not a king. He was something else, something greater, something inevitable. And Barad-dûr was more than a fortress. It was an idea given form, a wound in the world that would never close. And as he stood there beneath the shadow of that rising monolith, beneath the weight of something that could not be undone, he understood at last what it meant to stand in the presence of one who did not merely seek to command, but to redefine the very nature of existence itself. The sky over Mordor was no longer a mere sky, no longer a vast and empty expanse through which the light of the stars might weave its distant, indifferent song. No, here above the great spires of Barad-dûr, the heavens themselves had been remade, veiled in a ceaseless pall of smoke and shadow, thick with the breath of forges that never slept, stained with the ever-present glow of Orodruin's burning heart. The air was heavy, not only with the weight of soot and heat, but with something deeper, something unseen, something that coiled through the stones of the fortress and the very land itself, binding all things to the will that had shaped them. The fortress was no longer merely rising. It had become, had settled into the world like a blade driven deep into flesh, an unhealing wound, a scar that time itself would not erase. The work was no longer a labor of hands alone. The physical toil had continued, the endless march of bodies, the hammers striking stone, the iron riveted into place with the screams of those who fell beneath its weight. But now there was something else woven into the very foundations, something greater than mortar, something more binding than steel. The spells had begun, the enchantments, the weavings of will and power that stretched beyond the limits of mere construction. This was the final stage, the moment when the fortress was no longer merely a fortress, when it would cease to be simply a place of stone and iron and instead become something more. Sauron stood upon the highest platform, his golden eyes unblinking. His gaze stretched far beyond the walls of his own creation, far beyond the mountains that encircled his growing dominion. He saw further than any mortal, further than any king who had ever ruled, further than even most of the Maiar who had walked the world before him. He saw the future, the shape of things yet to come, the way the land would twist and bend around this place, the way the world itself would adjust, accommodating what could no longer be undone. He saw the ripples of Barad-dûr's existence spreading outward, unseen but inevitable, threading through the fabric of time itself, pulling all things slowly, inexorably, toward the shadow that now loomed above them all. Behind him, Elrich climbed the blackened stairway, his breath heavy, his footsteps slow. His body bore the marks of his years in this place, the toil of labor that had not been softened even by his rank, for there was no comfort here, no shelter from the demands of this work. His hands, once strong, once skilled in the craft of war, were now cracked and calloused, his armor stained with the dust of the tower, with the sweat of uncountable days beneath the watchful, unyielding gaze of his master. He had thought long ago that he had known what it meant to serve, that he had understood what it meant to build something that would outlast him. But now, as he reached the top of the stairs, as he looked upon the dark expanse before him, he understood that he had been a fool. This was not simply a fortress. It was not a thing that could be understood in the terms of walls and gates and battlements. It was something else. It was power made physical, something that did not merely defend but consumed, something that did not merely house its master, but extended his will into the world itself. Lick could feel it now, pressing against him, shifting the very air around him, bending the space within its walls, as if the tower itself were not merely built upon the land, but were replacing it, rewriting it, reshaping it into something that had never existed before. He stepped forward, his breath coming slow, deliberate, wary as he stood beside Sauron, gazing down upon the world that stretched below them. "It is done," he said at last, his voice quieter than he had meant it to be, as if the air itself had stolen the strength from his words. Sauron did not turn to him immediately. He stood still, motionless, as if listening to something far beyond the reach of ears, as if hearing the voice of the world itself shifting beneath his feet. When he finally spoke, his voice was smooth, calm, yet vast, carrying with it something deeper than words, something heavier than sound. "No," he murmured. "Not yet, not fully. Not until the last stone is bound, not until the last chain is forged." Bugrok frowned slightly, his thick fingers curling at his sides. "The last chain," he echoed. "The tower is finished, the forges burn, the walls are set. The highest spires reach beyond the sight of those who dwell below. What remains?" Sauron turned to him then, and the weight of that gaze was like nothing Lugrich had ever known, like staring into the heart of a fire that had no end, no limits, no boundary between what was and what would be. "The tower is not merely a place," Sauron said, his voice quiet, yet pressing against the mind like iron wrapped in silk. "It is an extension of my will, and will alone is not enough. A thing must be bound to the world if it is to shape it. A thing must be anchored. Luggery hesitated, and in that hesitation something colder than fear crept into his mind. Anchored, he repeated slowly. He did not know why, but the word felt heavier than it should have, as if it carried with it something unseen, something unspoken. How? Sauron turned back to the land, his golden eyes narrowing slightly, his expression unreadable, thoughtful, almost expectant. In fire, he said at last. In fire and in a circle unbroken. Brooke did not know what that meant, but he felt something stir within him, something uneasy, something that made his breath come slower, his chest feel tighter. He did not question further. He knew, deep in his bones, that there was no answer he could ask for that would change what was coming. And as the tower stood complete, unyielding, terrible in its presence, the final piece of its making had yet to be forged. Far below, in the heart of the mountain, in the great churning fires of Orodruin, the last link in the chain that would bind Barad to the world was waiting to be made. And when it was done, when the fire had done its work, when the forging was complete, there would be no one doing it. Not in this age, not in any age to come. Deep beneath the land, beneath the blackened slopes and jagged ridges of Mordor, beneath the towering spires of Barad-dûr and the ceaseless labor that had raised them, there was a place where the world had never cooled, where the bones of the earth still churned with ancient fire. It was a place older than stone, older than the memory of the Eldar, older than the wars of gods and kings. A place that had slept silent and patient through the ages of the world, its heart pulsing with the slow, steady breath of something that had never known stillness. Orodruin, the mountain of fire, the great forge of Sauron. The air within the mountain was thick, oppressive, filled with the scent of burning metal and molten rock. The walls slick with heat, the very stone groaning beneath the weight of its own fury. Rivers of fire slithered through the darkness, their surfaces churning, bubbling, thick with the raw, unshaped essence of the world itself. This was not the tame fire of the forges of men, nor the measured heat of elven smithies, where delicate blades were kissed into shape by careful hands. No, this was something older, something wilder. A fire that did not yield, that did not wait, that did not serve. A fire that could not be contained, only used if one had the strength to master it. And Sauron had such strength. He stood alone upon the narrow ledge that overlooked the vast molten chasm, his robes still and untouched by the furious heat, his golden eyes reflecting the restless glow below him. He had come here before, long ago, when first he had chosen this land, when first he had seen in its broken expanse the foundation upon which his dominion would be built. But he had not come then to forge, only to prepare. Now the time had come. Barad-dûr was finished, its great towers stretching into the sky, its walls impenetrable, its foundation so deeply rooted in the land that it could not fall by mere force of arms. But it was not enough. Strength was not enough. Strength could be broken, power could be taken, but something bound, something woven into the very nature of the world itself that could not be undone. That was what he would forge here. Slowly, deliberately, Sauron lifted his hand, and in his grasp was something small, unassuming, a simple band of unshaped gold. It was nothing yet, a mere trinket, a piece of unworked metal as meaningless as the discarded coins of mortal kings. But it would not remain so. He lowered the band toward the fire, his fingers steady, his eyes unblinking, his will fixed upon the shaping of something that had never before been made. As the molten glow reflected upon its surface, he began to speak, not aloud, not in words that could be heard by any ear, but in the deep language of the world itself, in the tongue that only those who had walked beyond the circles of time could know. The air thickened, the heat swelled, the fire listened, and the gold in his hand was no longer gold alone. It drank the words he spoke, absorbed them, wove them into its very being, until the metal was no longer mere metal, until the fire was no longer merely fire, until the will that had shaped them both had bound them together into something greater, something deeper, something that no force in Middle-earth could unravel. This was not merely a thing of craft. This was something else. A chain, a tether, a shadow stretched across all things. His voice grew louder, the echoes of his words vibrating through the very walls of the mountain, through the rivers of fire, through the roots of the world itself. He poured himself into it, his essence, his thought, his dominion. Every stone of Barad-dûr, every blackened ridge of Mordor, every creature that had ever bent knee to him or ever would, every whisper of fear in the hearts of those who opposed him, all of it was drawn into this one thing, all of it bound together, caught in the unbreakable lattice of his will. And then at last it was done. He lifted the ring from the fire, and though it burned with a light deeper than flame, it did not scorch his hand, did not mar his skin. It was perfect, a smooth band of gold, flawless, unbroken, its surface plain and empty, yet filled with something vast, something greater than anything that had ever been forged by hand. And slowly, as the heat of the fire faded from its surface, the words appeared, words in a tongue known only to him, a tongue of command, a tongue that did not ask but demanded. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. Sauron smiled then, slow and knowing, his golden eyes glinting in the firelight, his fingers tightening around the band that now held more than mere metal, that now held more than mere strength. This was more than a weapon, more than a symbol. This was him, his will, his essence, his dominion given form. And through it all, things would be drawn to him. All things would be seen. All things would be known. The rings of power, the lords of the earth, the minds of kings and warriors and wizards alike, they would all come to him in time, bound by this one thing, by this unseen tether, by the power that had been forged in fire and sealed in darkness. He turned from the chasm, the glow of the molten fire casting his shadow long upon the blackened rock. He did not need to look back. He did not need to wonder if his work had been completed. He knew Barad-dûr had been built. But now it was anchored. Now it could never fall. And as he stepped from the forge, as he carried his creation with him into the darkness, into the waiting halls of his great fortress, into the world that would soon kneel before it, the weight of what had been done here settled over all of Middle-earth, unseen but undeniable. A shadow had been cast, and it would never be lifted.